ASMR. I hope you're doing well. Taking care of yourself. I wanted to make this video after a pretty long pandemic, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to just kind of reintroduce something to my channel, since it's been a long time. I've not really been active, and just really wanted to make this video for anyone who watches, even if it's one person. Just want to make this video for all of you. I think it's important that we reflect a little bit and consider our mental health right now. I know it's been a tough going for me. I know it's been a tough going for my family, my friends. There's really no one, I think, in most of the world who has escaped without any either mini trauma or big trauma or medium trauma. There's all kinds of trauma that we have gone through, and I think it's important to recognize it, reflect a little bit, and then try to move on as well. So that's what I've been trying to do lately. I'm finishing up school soon, my master's, so I'm excited about that. Anyone who's watching, I would love to hear in the comments what's going on with you, what you've been doing. Have things been better? Have things been worse? If they've been worse, I hope they get better for you. I know it's a tough time, and just want this to be a welcoming podcast. I know people liked the old podcast that I did for psychology topics. This one is going to be just COVID-19 specific, so it's going to talk about lots of different things that I've kind of looked around for on the APA website, the American Psychology Association, I think it's called. I would assume, American Psychological Association. So we're just going to look through some articles that talk about COVID-19 and mental health. And the first article that we'll look at is COVID-19 stress management tools. And I will be looking over here for the rest of the video, just to keep my eyes on the screen. But this article talks about tools that you can use for stress management. 5 quick action-oriented things you can do to help manage excessive stress during COVID-19 and the science behind them. Now, this was back in January of last year, but honestly, these techniques are good for any type of anxiety, stress. There's so many good reasons to use these exercises, so I would recommend them. And just looking through them, there are some really good things here. So I think for this first one, we're just going to close our eyes. Maybe you already have them closed. We're going to do some slow breathing. We're going to hold in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. Breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, and then breathe out for 6, and we'll do this 10 times. So this is proven to be just really helpful for your current mental state, and then if it's done repeatedly, it is good for your overall mental state. So let's just close our eyes, get our lungs ready. And again, I just want this podcast to be a moment of reflection was 10. I also have to adjust my eyes very quickly. If I miscounted, that's okay. Hopefully that's kind of set the mood. I know I already feel relaxed. This is my first time being on camera for my videos, so if I look sleepy for the rest of it, it's because that was pretty great. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and again, I want this video to be an appreciation of you. And I was thinking, I think last week about this, just as a quick aside, that when we collectively go through something like this as a global culture, it's something that I really wish could bring us together. And by that I mean that we all shared some amount of difficulty, stress, trying to adjust to life inside, trying to adjust to no social interactions or limited social interactions. At work, I still have to adjust to speaking on a camera. I don't like it. I still don't like it. But we've all made these adjustments, and we've all gone through something pretty profound together. So, I think it's good for us to just consider what we've been through. I think it's important to remember people that we've lost. If you've lost family members or friends, just want to kind of keep them in mind, and if you're watching and you have had a loss in your family right now, I'm going to keep you in my mind, just collectively as a group. So yeah, I'm getting a little touchy-feely, but I think it's important to just reflect and be thankful. We made it. Some of us have been weathered more than others. I consider myself fairly lucky, and I'm very grateful for that. But again, I want to hold all of you in my heart. I haven't made videos for a very long time, but I think about all of the comments that I've gotten, all of the people who have watched my videos, think about everyone all the time, and just really appreciate everything that you guys have done. So we are going to continue on now with some other techniques for handling stress, and focus yourself is something that I definitely struggle with. Racing thoughts can be really, really overwhelming, and it can make sleep pretty difficult. I think that's a reason why I really enjoy ASMR, because it does kind of turn down those racing thoughts. So we're not going to do this, but you can count backwards by 3 in your mind, from 100 to 0, or by 1. If 3 is too much math, I understand that. I might do 1. It'd be a longer time, but counting backwards by 3 is a difficult task. But so that might help you focus. I also think the breathing exercises is good for focus as well. This is one that I use a lot. Relax yourself by tensing each muscle group in your body for 10 seconds and then releasing. This can have a really, really big impact on me. It just kind of makes me feel like I weigh 20 more pounds when after I do it. It just makes me sink into my bed. My muscles really do get relaxed after. So if you're trying to sleep and you're looking for ways to help out with it, maybe try tensing up your muscles. I usually start with my feet, kind of curl up your muscles, and then I'll go from my calves to my legs, abdomen, and then I'll just move up to the rest of my body. So that's a good one. Ground yourself. Just kind of focusing on your physical what's going on with you. I don't really focus on this, but it is good to kind of be in the moment. I think meditation as well, with the breathing exercises, is really good for wellness, and well-being, and just existing in the moment. And just another tangent, I guess, talking about COVID and how we all handle stress and how we all handle trauma, difficulties in the world. This is something that I have really tried to do for the last several years of my life, and also, political, global events with, war and everything else, just focusing on the day-to-day. This is also a big factor, and I think time management. It's important to place the big rocks first, or move the big rocks first, I should say. By that I mean, when you go through a day, your focus should almost always be, what is the most important task that I need to do? And can I get that done today? Or can I get it done tomorrow? Or can I get it done maybe in the next hour? Whatever time frame you set for yourself, or whatever time frame seems reasonable, I think is it's good to break things down in life, because sometimes it can just be really overwhelming, and things can kind of, you can feel like you're drowning a little bit, and everything can get above your head. And I know I feel like that a lot, for sure. So, taking it day by day, focusing on what you can do and what is feasible for yourself in a given day, I think is really powerful, for sure. And I think ground yourself kind of goes into that. And then the last one is huge, and it's one that I definitely, struggle with, is celebrating yourself, celebrating your accomplishments. I think sometimes we go through, our life, and we don't really show appreciation for what we've accomplished, what we've been through. So this video kind of represents this last part of just celebrating each other again, just showing appreciation for where we are and where we can go from here. And things aren't always going to be great, and the future is scary. It's always going to be that way. But we all do the best we can, and I try to see that in everyone. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic or anything. It probably comes across that way, but I just think it's important to consider. So yeah, so those are some tips for stress management for COVID. So let's move on to another one, and this is talking about why the pandemic ending has spurred anxiety. And there are some points in here that I've thought about a lot, so it's interesting to kind of look over it. So getting back into life has been very difficult for me. So I guess we can read this just a little bit. So, anxiety is driven by uncertainty. There is so much uncertainty right now, from the vaccine rollout to society reopening, to the new normal workplace, to the virus and the variants themselves. Every day there is more evidence that vaccines keep us and people around us safe. Excuse me. But there are lingering questions about how long immunity lasts, how susceptible kids are to COVID-19, and when they will get vaccinated. first time in 2 years, and I think it was exactly 2 years since they made us all remote. And I'm going in every now and then for the foreseeable future. It was just strange being around my coworkers, and I'd seen some of them, during the pandemic. But for one thing, my office is huge. I work in a very big, it's a university, and it was dead. There was no one in there, and we had a tour group. We had like an orientation, and it was cool to see everything, but just to see how empty it was. And I just remember going in, especially on Fridays before the pandemic, and that place was packed. It was loud. People were like having parties and potlucks. It was really a fun place. And so it was strange. It was a little Twilight Zone, to be there without many other people. And it'll never be that way again. They've at my job, they've permanently allowed remote work. So if you want to be remote, you can. So, there was definitely some awkwardness. I've had awkwardness with my friends. I might be telling a few stories here. In November, I went to a few concerts, and actually around that time, things were okay. We were getting better, and then the winter was tough. This was last November, but we had gotten out of the end of the summer was pretty good, and then the fall seemed alright. So masks were not mandated where I was, and I just remember being in this theater, and there were just probably 1,000 people around, something like that, maybe like 800 in the theater, and it was kind of like sensory overload for me. I've been so used to sitting at my desk and doing my work, and playing video games and maybe going for a walk here or there, but being in this place with all this noise and all these people, and also knowing that everyone was experiencing the same thing made it even harder for me, I think. And by that I mean everyone in that theater had a story. Everyone had gone through a lot, and we were here trying to enjoy ourselves, and it was great. I mean, we all had fun. It wasn't like this downer concert or anything like that, but you could just tell everyone was kind of looking around. Is it safe? There was a moment when the band was playing, it got really loud, and I got hit with like a little panic attack. It wasn't a big one, but yeah, that stuff is real, and if that's happened to you, really, I think a good thing to just remember is everyone else that you see is probably going through the same thing. Maybe some people have it a little better, maybe some people have it a little bit worse, or a lot worse. So just remember, you're not the only one. Most people are going to be understanding if you're being socially awkward. So we'll get there. We'll get back into it. It really is practice. It's not like riding a bike at all, at least for me. So yeah, it's been an adjustment. So let's read this one. How can people feel more comfortable with re-entry? There's one question I've been getting over and over from people who struggle with social anxiety. They'll say, I did so much work pre-pandemic to get to the point where I could give a presentation or raise my hand in class. They're worried they'll be back at square one when they are again, that's not a good sentence, when they are again in large groups. But social confidence is like a muscle. Basically what I just said, it's like, it's not like riding a bike. It's something you have to work out. You have done work on your social anxiety in the past. That architecture is still there. It will feel awkward at first, but it will come back faster than the first time around. As for feeling comfortable returning to everyday activities, there are dozens of points of re-entry relationships, predict our future health, happiness, and even longevity. So it's worth it to push ourselves a little to get the interaction we all need, even if we are the most introverted of introverts. That's a great little section right there. I think that's fantastic. That's not too loud. Sorry. So this part. Sorry, this part. This is something that I think is a huge opportunity for everyone. Because again, we've just gone through a pretty crazy experience. And not only is it a crazy experience, it happened during the age of social media, and everything is on tape, and we saw everything. You know, I remember early on they compared the pandemic to the Spanish flu in the 1920s, and that was serious. I don't think it was as serious as this. At least I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But you know, people saw each other being sick, and maybe they read in the newspaper, but the amount of just stressful stimuli that we all got on a day-to-day basis. I would go watch the news every morning just to see what was happening. I would see people in the hospital who didn't get vaccines, and they would be given these, kind of sad explanations and about why they didn't get it, and just seeing all of this information overload. It was a lot, and I know a lot of my friends, and this has been pretty recent, they've gotten rid of their social medias. I don't use social media at all anymore. I guess YouTube counts. I do use YouTube, and I use Reddit, but again, I kind of want to focus on myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of times people feel like they need to carry the weight of the earth on their shoulders, and it's just not true. It really isn't. Everyone wants to, be the hero and save the world, or at least a lot of people do. And some people should do it. Some people are good at it. But there's nothing wrong with having a small, simple life, doing what makes you happy, taking care of yourself, your family, your friends. So I think things, with COVID and, again, the social media and everything, it got a little bit too big. It kind of got a little too inflated. And I think a good strategy, at least for myself moving forward, is to turn it down a little bit, watch less news, don't use social media. If I want to get in touch with people I know, I'll text them, I'll call them, I'll ask them to hang out. I'm not going to worry about scrolling through Instagram and talking to, my high school friend that I haven't seen in, 20 years or whatever. Well, not 20 years, but you get it. So yeah, slowing things down, trying to appreciate the day-to-day. Still a lot of work to do. We all have a lot we have to overcome. And yeah, I think this is, just a good way to look at it. So, alright, depression and anxiety escalate during COVID. Rates of anxiety and depression among U.S. adults were about 4 times higher between April 2020 and August 2021 than they were in 2019. Some of the sharpest increases were among males, Asian Americans, young adults, and parents with children in the home, which definitely makes sense. According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention data. So these are some of the numbers December 2019. That is insanely low, and I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a statistician. That's a hard word. I would imagine this is probably off even in 2019 by at least 20%, if not 30 or more, because this is people who report it, and a lot of people don't report anxiety. A lot of people also don't even recognize their anxiety. If you think about psychology as if you use an analogy for it, it really is an iceberg. If the amount of people who are diagnosed is the tip of the iceberg, there's still a good chunk of it that goes unnoticed by the person who has it, gets misdiagnosed. Maybe it gets diagnosed and then forgotten. Maybe the person has a hunch that they have anxiety or depression, but they can't label it that. And maybe someone is in denial. So there's so many factors, and it's why psychology it's a hard science in some ways, but it's mainly a soft science in many other ways, because there's so many variables, there's so much variance between individuals, and I really do kind of live by the idea that everything is a spectrum. I think that everybody probably has a smidge of autism in them, even if it's a tiny little decimal. I think everyone has, a percentage of anxiety that they feel, and so it really is kind of it's a bell curve. Actually, it's not a bell curve. I take that back. It would be like just an upwards curve, I believe. But anyways, I think that we all experience different things. I can be obsessive about things. I definitely feel anxiety and depression. There's lots that play into mental health. So, but another good point about that, in my opinion, is because it's such a soft science. There's so much gray area. No one should ever label themselves with a mental disorder. I don't care what it is. It could be severe, catatonic schizophrenia. Who knows? Any mental health condition that you have, or any other condition or disease, is a part of you. It is not you. So, I think a good kind of rule is you don't want to use them as adjectives. You want to use them as nouns. So, you could say, I have depression, I have anxiety. But when you start saying, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, you have now limited yourself. You've limited yourself to improvement. You've limited yourself to a whole range of emotions and thoughts, because you've now just accepted that you are anxious or you are depressed. So, yeah, that would be something that I might, recommend. And again, I don't always, follow these rules. There's a lot of this that I am happy to talk about and think about. I love to learn and to think, but I might not always practice what I preach. So, but I think that's if you want to use an easy mnemonic device to remember, your mental health conditions are nouns. They are objective nouns, not adjectives. So, just, something to think about. So you can see it went up to 28 to 37. Now this would be around the range of actual anxiety that I would expect without COVID. anxiety, went up a good amount more, 7 or 8 points. And depression didn't, I guess it makes sense since the base number is a little lower for depression. It's kind of interesting. Alright, we have a couple more, and then I'm going to, I've seen, cards. It's getting dark outside, so hopefully you guys can see. I have some cards. They're Star Wars cards, and I just wanted to kind of maybe do some, ASMR with them. I don't even know if they're going to sound good, but just play around with them and maybe, show you guys some of the pictures on them. And maybe we'll finish out at the very end with another breathing exercise. I will spare us from doing the muscle exercise to prevent myself from looking pretty foolish on camera, but we'll do some more breathing at the end. Stress in America, money, inflation, war pile on the nation, onto nations stuck in COVID-19 survival mode. Now, we can definitely look through this, but just this subtitle brings up a whole nother kind of interesting part of this, at least psychologically, I think. So, there is a book that I once read, and I'm just gonna go here, and maybe you guys can hear the typing. Just making sure I have the right one. Okay, yep, I just want to, I read this a long time ago. I'll show you, I just want to make sure. So, Things Fall Apart. This was a book that I read, I think in high school, if I remember correctly. And I remember really, really enjoying it. I'm going to keep reading a little bit to make sure I remember the plot exactly. The reason I bring it up is because I think it has a lot of application to this article. So the protagonist basically lives in a difficult situation. I think he lives in Africa, I think, as a tribe. Let's just read through it. It might take a little while, but let's just read through it. So the novel's protagonist, Okonkwo, is famous in the villages of Umuofia for being a wrestling champion, defeating a wrestler nicknamed Amelins the Cat. Okonkwo is strong, hardworking, and strives to show no weakness. He wants to dispel his father Unoka's tainted legacy of unpaid debts, a neglected wife and children, and cowardice at the sight of blood. Okonkwo works to build his wealth entirely on his own, as Unoka died a shameful death and left many unpaid debts. Excuse me. He is also obsessed with his masculinity, and any slight compromise to this is swiftly destroyed. As a result, he often beats his wives and children and is unkind to his neighbors. However, his drive to escape the legacy of his father leads him to be wealthy, courageous, and powerful among the people of his village. I lost my spot. Great. Okay, he is a leader of his village, having attained a position in his society for which he has striven all his life. Okonkwo is selected by the elders to be the guardian of Ikemefuna, a boy taken by the clan as a peace settlement between Umuofia and another clan after Ikemefuna's father killed an Umuofian woman. The boy lives with Okonkwo's family, and Okonkwo grows fond of him, although Okonkwo does not show his fondness so as not to appear weak. The boy looks up to Okonkwo and considers him a second father. The oracle of Umuofia eventually pronounces that the boy must be killed. As Yudu, the oldest man in the village, warns Okonkwo that he should have nothing to do with the murder because it would be like killing his own child. But to avoid seeming weak and feminine to the other men of the village, Okonkwo disregards this warning from the old man, striking the killing blow himself, even as Ikemefuna begs his father for protection. For many days after killing Ikemefuna, Okonkwo feels guilty and saddened. Shortly after Ikemefuna's death, things begin to go wrong for Okonkwo. He falls into a great depression as he has been greatly traumatized by the act of murdering his own adopted son. His sickly daughter, Izinma, falls unexpectedly ill, and it is feared she may die during a gun salute at Yudu's funeral. Okonkwo's gun accidentally explodes and kills Yudu's son. He and his family are exiled to his motherland, the nearby village Mbanta, for several years to appease the gods. He has offended. Man, those are just tough sentences for me to read. Part 2. While Okonkwo is away in Mbanta, he learns that white men are living in Umuofia with the intent of introducing their religion, Christianity. As the number of converts increases, the foothold of white people grows and a new government is introduced. The village is forced to respond with either appeasement or resistance to the imposition of the white people's nascent society. Okonkwo's son, Nwoye, starts getting curious about the missionaries and the new religion. After he's beaten by his father for the last time, he decides to leave his family behind and live independently. He wants to be with the missionaries because he believes his beliefs have changed while being introduced to Christianity by Mr. Brown. In the last year of exile, Okonkwo instructs his best friend, Obirika, to sell all of his yams and hire 2 men to build him 2 huts so he can have a house to go back to with his family. He also holds a great feast for his mother's kinsmen, where an elderly attendee bemoans the current state of their tribe and its future. Returning from exile, Okonkwo finds his village changed by the presence of the white men. After a convert commits an evil act by unmasking an elder as he embodies an ancestral spirit of the clan, the village retaliates by destroying a local Christian church. In response, the district commissioner, representing the colonial government, takes Okonkwo and several other native leaders prisoner, pending payment of a fine of 200 bags of cowries. Despite the district commissioner's instructions to treat the leaders of Umuofia with respect, the native court messengers humiliate them, doing such things as shaving their heads and whipping them. As a result, the people of Umuofia finally gather for what could be a great uprising. Okonkwo, a warrior by nature and adamant about following Umuofian custom and tradition, despises any form of cowardice and advocates war against the white men. When messengers of the white government try to stop the meeting, Okonkwo beheads one of them, but because the crowd allows the other messengers to escape and does not fight alongside Okonkwo, he realizes with despair that the people of Umuofia are not going to fight to protect themselves. His society's response to such conflict, which for so long had been predictable and dictated by tradition, is changing. The district commissioner, Gregory Irwin, then comes to Okonkwo's house to take him to court. He finds that Okonkwo has hanged himself to avoid being tried in a colonial court. Among his own people, Okonkwo's actions have tarnished his reputation and status, as it is strictly against the teachings of the Igbo to commit suicide. appreciate you for working with me through that long reading. The reason I wanted to bring this book up, and we'll go back to this, was because it's about an individual who goes through a lot of trauma, a lot of challenges, a lot of just difficult situations, one by one, and I think the title really kind of exemplifies that emotion of that character. And I think, the idea of him trying to stay masculine, not wanting to stay, to seem weak, speaks a lot about our attitudes towards, things going badly, and how we look at, issues in the world, issues in our own life. A lot of us really try to toughen up, roll up our sleeves, and just, deal with things that come to us with, bravery and, trying to seem like we don't need anyone's help. I have, family members who, could use therapy, and a lot of them don't do it because they're too proud. They don't want to seem weak. They don't want to give in to humility. And I think this book, I remember it and connected to this very well, because I think we all need to show some humility and accept the fact that we've gone through a lot, and we're not alone in this. And I think this is going to be actually a good place for me to kind of end this COVID-19 conversation, by just really, reinforcing that, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and it's kind of out of our control, a lot of it, and so don't try to control everything, because it'll never happen. That doesn't mean you shouldn't fight for what you want to see in the world and in your life, but sometimes you need to just kind of lay down your arms, like that tribe, and, kind of give in to, protecting yourself, your wellness. There's no one that's more important than you. I don't care if it's your father, your mother, your brother. None of them are as important as you. So there's in social work, in psychology, there is a term called co-management, and that means that in social work, if you're working with a client, you need to make sure that your health, well-being, and safety are the highest priority. So that means it should be the priority over your client. You should not put yourself at risk emotionally, physically, whatever, in order to help someone else. It's just not good. No matter how much you want to help, no matter how much good you want to do, you are numero uno, and you are, important. There's a lot that we all have to work on, so you're not alone. Anyone who needs to talk, I'm here. Feel free to reach out, to comment on this video, whatever you want to do. Talk to your family, find a therapist, just find someone to talk to, and show some humility, and just kind of accept the fact that we are in a crazy time, and we're gonna make it through. It's gonna be hard, but we can do it, and I believe in all of you. And so that is going to do it for my COVID-19 psychology podcast. So let's close our eyes.